learn in a better way. So it's very, how can I say, ground-based, and it has to do with the field more than just the theory. Right? So AFL is about field work, not just theory and beautiful expressions and whatever. Beautiful. Then again, today we're going through the rest of the key points if we have time again, but we will keep it very flexible. We're going to go through formative and summative assessment, again, just to see what are these and try to make our own definitions as usual. We'll try to keep it as simple as possible. We'll move after that to features of AFL, AFL stages and key strategies. And yeah, these are the only 3 major keys that we have left for this first chunk of AFL. Beautiful. Then again, let's try to do something that we've done yesterday. Let's do it again today. I feel that it's very useful when you guys learn from each other instead of just throwing definitions at you. And again, Usama, if you could put live the breakout rooms just like yesterday, that would be very much appreciated.
Okay.
Beautiful. And then this time we're gonna time it for 10 minutes again, why not? And again, I would need you to first make up your own very brief, straightforward, direct definition of what is formative assessment and what is summative assessment. Again, a lot of people tend to see formative and summative as contradictory terms that pretty much simplifies what is formative and what is summative assessment. However, I would like you to discuss among yourselves a basic and holistic definition of formative assessment and then of summative assessment. And then we'll go back to another breakout room and try to find the relationship. Okay, so Usama, team number 1. Let's say Aysam, Hussein, Suat, and...
Gonna be speaking?
Yes, Suat, go ahead.
So I'm gonna start by the formative assessment. It happens constantly. It's gonna be, or it is. It can happen after every single day or after every single activity. It doesn't. The teacher doesn't allot grades to every time he gives them quiz or questions. The purpose of the formative assessment is not to give marks, but rather to receive data about the students. This data will help the teacher to adjust or adopt his or her teaching method according to the student's needs. Formative assessments focuses on the process rather than the product. It is also an evaluation which has the function of improving the learning in progress by detecting the difficulties of the learner in a pedagogical function. Whereas summative assessments, it occurs periodically at the end of the year or the semester or the term. It is not like the formative assessment. It focuses on the final product rather than the process. And the teacher here assigns grades to the students.
You did this in the second session and I was not present. So to put it simply, is formative assessment something that you do every day, and like summative assessment is like something you do at the end of the semester, or is it something like that?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's just basically explained. The summative is the sum up of the whole thing. It's the cumulation. And the French system, they call it a système certification. For example, a TOEFL is a summative assessment. So maybe they don't teach you, you just pass an exam and you get a degree. On the other hand, the formative one, formation. So they form you. You might not pass an exam. For example, when we're studying for الأول الثاني الثالث, there's nothing but a summative and formative assessments بحال في الشهادة, because you get a
Yes.
certificate
Okay,
even from the
makes sense.
name.
Thank you so much.
So,
Yes.
No worries.
okay, Isam, I have a question, please. So, Rawa mentioned that formative assessment is like an everyday evaluation. Is that,
Mhm.
I mean, how can
It's-
we have an everyday
it-
evaluation? It's like quizzes?
No, but for example, if you remember what Mr. Simon said, it's not the purpose of the whole session is for the session to not have any passive exchange. It's
Yeah.
not just the professor talking and the students following. It's not because if you think about it, we all pass through the same thing. For example, at the end of the class, a teacher asks the same question. Did you understand? Is there any question? Of course,
Yeah.
you'd get the same answer. But AFL makes you give the proper questions. For example, what is AFL? What is this? What is that? So I don't ask you if there's something that you didn't understand, but I kind of force you into answering things that I think you might not have understood. And how it happens, it's accumulation. It's a day by day thing. So the function of it, as Suad said, it's not getting marks or giving marks. It's making sure that there's progress.
Okay, I got you. So it's all about seeing if there is a progress or not.
Yeah. So we
Okay.
assess if the progress is there and we detect it and we improve through it.
Okay, I got your
Right,
point.
my
Thank you
turn,
so much,
right?
Isam.
Yeah. Shema, you have a question, I believe?
Yes, Shema wants to ask a question.
Yeah, I want to ask you, I got it what formative assessment is, but when it comes to summative assessment, I want to ask Itham whether evaluation happens or occurs in summative assessment. Like you said, it's kind of certificates and you pass exams and quizzes. So is this the difference between them? Is it evaluation, students' performance and grading them, scoring their abilities and their skills?
Yeah. If you look at the definition that we were given, it's the sum from the name summative, the sum of the knowledge at the end of the training or the school year. You get either a certification or it is an administrative or social function, like الباك.
Yep.
But
Okay,
it's a mix. So when we're studying, we're doing the formative assessment, but at the end of the year, it's a summative assessment.
Okay, hold on. I have a question, Isam.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yes, Yusuf.
Right,
Yeah,
Aicha,
look,
is
I've read a bunch of stuff and I found that there is formative assessment, summative assessment, and evaluation. I have no problem with formative assessment. I just want to know the difference between summative assessment and evaluation. Are they the same thing or there's a difference between them? Because I've seen that during evaluation, we give marks to the students, but the formative assessment and summative assessment, they're just a way to assess the performance of students.
Yeah, I guess
Right.
through what I have found, Yusuf, I found that summative assessment is how much someone has learned. So it's like to evaluate students' learning at the end of the term. It's like an exam, if we might say that. That's what I've understood. Yes, Yusuf?
It could be a kind of exam, but it doesn't have any relation with marks, right? You don't put marks when it comes to summative assessment.
It can have
Exactly.
relation with it. Can
Yeah,
have,
you
because,
put marks only on during the evaluation.
because assignments and tests and projects, they all count as summative assessment.
Yes. I have found final projects too. Okay, so
but I
Aisha,
guess, but I
Aisha,
guess
continue.
what Isam said was the fact that you get certified. So that
Yeah, and I
counts
want
as a.
I'll give you a simple example. There's in French, in the French system, del fudalf.
Yep.
There's something else that you get an examination. For example, when you pass del fudalf, you're passing to get a C1 or C2 certificate. So that's the accumulation of a year. So you have to make sure that you are doing that on your own. On the other hand, there's this other examination. If you want me to look it up, I'll look the name for you. But it's an examination that doesn't take into consideration the level you're going to pass. They assess you after you pass the examination. So that is the other head of the coin, if you know what I mean. So you're not starting from the same starting point. You start from whatever. You might pass the same exam as everyone else because they give you kind of a pamphlet or a booklet. And some people get in that exam a C1, some people get an A2, some people get a B2. I think the best example is the language testing system, because UBAC, you need a 10 to pass it. So it's a summative. Everyone have the same kind of teaching throughout the school year, but when you're doing just testing, everyone doesn't have the same starting point, because what I taught myself by myself is not the same that what other people taught themselves. So it's more loose, if that makes sense.
And summative assessment.
If I may, I think I got what Hissam is trying to say. If anyone has studied in the American Language Center, they do that kind of assessment before you get in. So to know in which level they will put you.
Yeah,
I guess that's the
yes.
formative you mean, Hissam, right?
Exactly.
Okay. All
Okay,
right,
so
so-
now it makes sense. Thank you.
Just
Yes.
one thing, Yus. Could you tell me the definition of a sum up or summarize? What do you think the definition of that is?
Definition of the sum up, I believe, is when you read something, you assess the students if they have learned the thing completely or not at the end of the learning process. Yeah.
Exactly. What about the other one? What about the examination or evaluation? What does it mean to evaluate someone?
Evaluated that you give them marks, you judge their performance.
Exactly.
Okay.
Does that, can you see the difference between the two now?
Yeah, so
Because
that's
one,
what I have understood before.
sometimes you can grade in the summative one, sometimes you do not, because the grading system differentiate. But when you evaluate something, a baram, there's like a scale. So you cannot tell me that you evaluated the text, because when the writer, for example, we do English. So when the writer say the sky is blue, there might be multiple definitions to that terminology. But when you're having a math exam, you cannot tell me 1 + 1 = 3. There is a scale that you have to follow. So it depends on the examination and what type of methodology we're following.
Okay.
Do you understand?
So, Issam, if I might like ask you to put it simply, what is the exam that we all had in common now?
For example, the examination that we had here in the ELT.
Okay,
That,
so
that is a
summative.
that is a summative, yeah.
Okay,
And what we had,
and the
we had-
formative. Okay,
the formative assessment is what we had
like-
before. It's
Okay.
the homework that we had to put on the ELT cloud. That's
Okay.
formative.
so let's say, okay, a summative assessment is like an exam that we had all at the end of, let's say, a school year. And for the formative assessment, it's like a TOEFL, ولا DELF and DAF, as you said, right?
No, listen. For formative assessment, you know those emails that Miss Aicha sends us and ask us what did you learn at the end?
So the progress of learning.
Yes, that's a
Okay.
formative. She sees our progress and she
Mhm.
adapts the lessons dependent on the next session. So if someone is lacking behind, they're either advised to go and check someone else's cloud or to just discuss with them. But at the end, when we have the exam, we have the same starting point. When it comes to the formative, when you look at each of us, our own accumulation of information on the cloud, it's not the same. You might write one paragraph and I might write a whole page, and your paragraph might be more precise than mine. But when it comes to the examination, we have the same starting point and the same end result.
Okay. All right. I get your point.
Walid has
Thank you
something
so
to say.
much, Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much, Aisa. Okay, Aisha, the floor is yours.
Floor is mine. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, that was really an interesting discussion. It's great to hear from you guys. The second team, Miriam, Yusuf, Shema, and Mustafa, who's the spokesperson.
Shaima is the spokesperson.
All right, Shema, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Well, actually, what we were discussing, like within my team, yeah, I already asked Sam about it. Like we were trying to distinguish whether grading happens in summative assessment and not in formative, and we agreed that formative assessment is happens in the process of teaching, it's a daily process. Whenever a teacher is teaching his students, he's doing a formative assessment and he's checking his students' progress, while summative assessment happens at the end of the teaching process. It's like at the end of the term, and it could be an evaluation. So this is the we were like raising this question mark whether evaluating is the same as summative assessment or not. Yeah, that's it.
Perfect, wonderful. So you're already raising the question of the relationship between formative and summative assessment. Wonderful. Again, we're going to go through the relationship in a minute in a group discussion before we pass on to looking at the actual relationship or difference between the two. Beautiful, thank you, Shema. We move to team 3, Rawaf, Tamzara, Khalid, and Najla and Safa, I guess. So Rawaf, who's the spokesperson this time?
It's Khalid.
Khalid, go ahead.
Yeah, I will just give a brief introduction of both and or let's say the goal of each of them, so that can help differentiate between them. Formative assessment is to monitor students' learning, to provide ongoing feedback that can be used by instructors to improve their teaching and by students to improve their learning. As for summative assessments, is to evaluate students' learning at the end of an instructional unit by comparing it against some standards or benchmark. Yeah.
Thank you, Khalid. A quick question. The last section, was it a Google section?
Yeah.
The last section, was it a Google section?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, busted. Of course it is. Yes. One thing, when you actually, when you become teachers and you work for a couple of, for some time actually, you're going to pick up what is Google and what is actual students' work. And it's going to be really fun, especially when students start swearing that this is mine. And then you're going to have a lot of fun as teachers.
Even if they use the paraphrasing tool?
Yes, even if they do, because once you work with your students, you know them.
All right.
Once you know them, whatever they do, you will know where they're getting information from or where they are bringing it from. So even the way they speak, you know, there are students who tend to write the way they speak. So when Khalid, for example, was given this definition, he was not speaking as Khalid. He was speaking as someone else. So again, this is something that happens with the time. You get to know your students a lot better when you collaborate with them, when you work with them, and so forth. All right. Sorry, Khalid, this was not an attack or whatever. That was a joke, but it became serious.
Yeah, I
cool.
just didn't know how, from where to get it because Google is my only option.
It's all right. Again, just like what we did yesterday with AFL, you can go through the concepts in a literal way. I don't need you to go through Google. I just need you to come up with your own stuff, because once we go through what the professionals say, it's going to be very easy for you to remember, because I'm sure that you already know what these things mean. Again, something that I liked yesterday that Aysam did with his group is that he asked Yusuf a very literal question. When you read assessment for learning, if you take it word by word, what does it mean? So that's exactly what you should do in the beginning when you are learning a new concept.
We already know these things as teachers. These definitions, we do them. We do these things without knowing that we do them. We just don't know the title of each one of them to differentiate like this is this kind of method to do this or something like that. We just have these kind of skills and we apply them without even feeling it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. So now we need to know what the skills are, what these skills are, what their definitions are. Because at some point now in your professional career, you're going to be asked questions and you need to know the answers. Yeah, wonderful. We move to team 4. That would be Usama and Sosan and Fatem Zahra.
And him.
And Aida. No, and Hind. Yes.
Yeah.
And Aida is with you as well, no?
She's not here. She's absent.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so I will just try to keep it simple. A summative assessment, from what we understood, it's a kind of evaluation for the students, learning at the end of the term. We can take, as an example, the ELT exam that we had. So that was a kind of a summative assessment. However, a formative assessment, it's a kind of a progress. And we can take, as an example, as Isam mentioned, the quizzes and homeworks that you gave us before, and that you will always give us like at the end of each session. So we can consider that as a formative assessment. It's like keeping track of the students' learning. So yeah, that's it, I guess.
Perfect. Usama, why did you make it sound as if it's a bad thing?
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
The homeworks that you will always give us. I mean, don't attack me like that.
Oh, no, that was a I'm sorry. I said always. Okay, my bad. I apologize, everyone.
I'm just kidding. Cool, very cool. And then, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to bear with me for the next, especially this month. It's going to be it is very intensive because we need to, we need to go through concepts from last month, and then we're going to discover new concepts with Mr. Gangami with translanguaging, and then but it's nothing hard again. Learning is an easy process. You just need to want to do it. If you have the motivation, it's going to be very easy. Beautiful. Then again, what I picked up from everyone at this point, which actually makes a lot of sense in regards to formative assessment and summative assessment. So formative assessment, you guys said that it's monitoring students' learning, and it happens constantly, which means all the time. Then again, in this form of assessment, there is no grading. And then again, it's used to check the progress of students, maybe through giving them homework or assignments or whatever. And then again, for the summative assessment, you guys have mentioned that it's a way to evaluate what the students have attained by the end of a course or a unit or a semester or whatever. And then again, you gave an example of the ELT exam that we had a couple of months ago. That was a summative assessment to assess your knowledge and ability to use and put into context the concepts that you've learned during the soft skills module, right? At some point, we will have another one like that for sure. Then again, yes, Suad.
Can we say that evaluation is part from both the summative and the formative assessment? Both of them you are going to use evaluation tools, but one of them is its purpose is to assign grades, and that's it. The other one, the purpose of it is to collect data about students and in order to adjust your teaching methods.
Cool. That's a great question. Again, I also heard Yusuf phrase that a couple of times about evaluation, difference between evaluation and summative assessment. Personally, and this is again something personal, maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right. And again, we could go back to research about that. Evaluation is not a something which is separate, that stands by itself. Again, I consider it just a word, just another term for assessment. It could go with summative assessment as well as formative assessment, as well as any other assessment that might exist. Evaluation is just a term to talk about something, a tool that you're using to, assess how your students are doing. Yes, Aisam.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the same thing, because when we go to the terminology of it, to assess something is to evaluate it. It's just that the tools we use to measure the progress of students is different, and the amount of progress we measure is different, because for the affirmative assessment, we measure just like a short period. When it comes to a summative one, we measure like the whole school year or the whole unit, like a big chunk. That's it.
Perfect, exactly. Wonderful. Then again, let's try to go through what has been written in books about these two concepts. And then we'll try to keep it very simple. Again, what you guys have mentioned so far, all of what you said is in the research, is in the literature about formative assessment and summative assessment. Then again, traditionally speaking, AFL has been closely linked with, formative assessment, because practices such as questioning and providing feedback help form or shape students' learning. Again, there's not a big difference between formative assessment and summative assessment in a way, because again, as Suad mentioned in the beginning, when we're doing formative assessment, we're not using grades. And that's probably the only difference, the only major difference between the, both of the types of assessment. Then again, summative assessment, as you guys said, happens at the end of something, happens at the end of a unit, at the end of a course, at the end of the term, at the end of whatever. So it's an assessment that students are aware of. They do it while they know that they are sitting down and taking, for example, an exam, or they're sitting down for an oral, or they're doing a portfolio, or whatever. So they are aware of the fact that they are being assessed. Then again, formative assessment, the student might be aware just as much as they won't probably be aware, because we're not doing all the time in class an assessment that the student know about. Probably it's just a discussion. And for the students, it's just a discussion. But for you, you are probably trying to work out data about how the students' fluency is, how they are using vocabulary that you've learned. Is there any progress in terms of their maybe spoken English, or maybe in terms of their public speaking skills, whatever your objective is. Okay, so there are commonalities and there are differences between both types of assessments. And again, I do not consider them to be one better than the other. I consider them to be complementing each other in a way, because we cannot do just formative assessment. At the end of something, we must do summative assessment. This is how the system works. So instead of fighting the system, let's just make everything work together. Because when you fight things, really nothing comes out of it. You just give yourself a headache. So just accept the system as it is and try to work yourself around it and be as flexible as possible in making your work journey as healthy as it could be. These are, again, some examples of formative and summative assessment. Again, both of these concepts, both of these terms, or both of these processes could be informal or could be formal. Informal in a way that, the example that I just mentioned a couple of seconds ago, where you're maybe doing a discussion and you're trying to figure out certain skills or certain objectives, have they been attained? Then again, sorry, in summative assessment, portfolios are most commonly informal because they are up to the student to do however they like, right? However, at the same time, portfolios could be formal, dependent on whether there is a structure, on whether there are objectives to be respected, on whether, there are a lot of things that take place when discussing portfolios. Again, you are going to receive an evaluation form of how portfolios are or should look like by the end. So far, you are given the freedom to work on it however you would like to. It's informal, but in a couple of weeks' time, it's going to move into the formal context because you're going to receive a grid and you're going to check mark what are the things that I've actually done and what are the things that I need to do, if there are any. Again, it's easier to work when you're working on something creatively, however you'd like. I do not want you to feel pressed or let's say controlled by a grid. So now you're really free to do it however you'd like to do it. And then maybe something that you've done in your portfolio goes beyond what's in the grid. If it is great and wonderful, we could actually add it or take it into consideration or whatever. So just be as creative as you want. Then again, formal assessment could be in the formative as well as the summative. For example, you could further analyze tests, exams. For instance, you would ask students to write essays or paragraphs or whatever you're working on. Then again, there's something that we do in class sometimes, not most of the time, not a lot of teachers like to do it. I'm one of them, which is doing, what is that? Dialogues in class. So teachers like to take a dialogue and put students in the context of the language that they're learning. It's more of bringing the language to life, in a sense. So this is also a means of formative assessment, which is also formal, because you're asking students to prepare in advance, and they are well aware that once they're standing there, they're going to be evaluated, whether by you as the teacher or via peer assessment, where students are giving feedback to each other. Again, there are many forms of this. But again, as Suad mentioned before, there is no grading. Then again, for the summative assessment, as you guys have mentioned, there are exams, tests, or essays in controlled conditions. Again, essay could be write however you want. That's formative. In a controlled condition, this is what you should do, this is what it should include. Then again, if we consider a paragraph, you would ask a student, or you would ask your students, could you write a paragraph about the weather today? Very simple. But then if you control it a little bit more and you would say, write a paragraph about the weather today, but I need you to use a topic sentence, and then support ideas, and then a concluding sentence. I need you to respect punctuation, good punctuation at the end of every section in your paragraph. I also need you to respect capitalization. So here you're controlling how the students are working. Same topic, but different instructions. Beautiful. Right. To sum up this section actually, and not to try and go into philosophical discussions about formative assessment and summative assessment, AFL is not about what you're using in class. It's not about whether it's formative or summative. It's not about using the communicative or the grammar translation approach. It's not about none of those. Again, AFL is about the importance of assessing throughout the learning process or throughout the teaching process, assessing how the students are learning and also assessing how you are teaching. So in a way, you're becoming a form of an artificial intelligence. You are always on the look for new information, for new data, to know how to manage your class more, to know how to better give your students instructions or help them achieve the learning objectives that you are setting for the class. All right. So I guess just a quick question, maybe a show of hands, just to know whether summative assessment and formative assessments actually make sense. There is a comment by Mohsin. What if after the summative assessment, you find out that some students have great marks and others have low marks? doesn't mean that the technique methods you use or implement are ineffective, and the teacher should question his or her philosophy of teaching. Mohsin, that's an excellent question. Again, when we are talking about the Moroccan context, of course, when you work, for example, with baccalaureate students or with whatever level, you will have very, very good students who have a high level. And then at the same time, you're going to have students who are having difficulties. And then it's impossible to manage these two in the same environment, in the same place, with the same person. So if you want to manage two different people, you're going to need two different teachers. A teacher for the students who are having difficulties, and then a teacher for the students who are doing pretty well. A lot of people believe that you could, as we say in Arabic, but in real life, that is very energy consuming. It will drain you a lot. So an advice on how to deal with that in the actual classroom is just to respect the book. You are given a book with certain objectives, very simple, exact, directly stated objectives. Try to respect them. And then you have certain units. You have certain grammar, let's say grammar skills, or whatever writing skills in the book. Respect them. Make sure that the students know what they need to know in order to succeed according to the objectives in the book. Do not make your own. Because if you make your own, that's going to be utopia, and utopia doesn't exist. I did that in my first year as a teacher, and I suffered because utopia doesn't exist. When you make high objectives for students who have completely and utterly different levels, you will make yourself suffer. So the only asal that we have is to actually respect the book, and that's it. And then you would play around with some techniques of how to help the students work together. Collaboration, systematic collaboration. A student with a high level with a student who has difficulties, put them together and let them learn. For me, that worked like magic. Students best learn when they're learning from each other, not when they're learning from me or you or any of us. So play on that. Play on the fact that the students learn better and learn best from each other. So use that card very well in your classes. Of course, when the levels are utterly different. And you will face that at some point for sure. Maybe not as bad as I am mentioning it right now, but there will be differences. Of course, you just need to take it easy and try to control the environment in which you're working. So I hope that answers your question, Mohsin. No, it's a very difficult question to answer, and then it just comes from habits that you build up as a teacher through experience. So teaching is more about the experience, not the books. The books say a lot of things. The theories, the approaches, they say a lot of things. We can find any of that online, but is it applicable in an actual classroom? That's up to you. You could come up with your own approach in class, depending on the students, on the environment, on all the variables that you have. But the only thing that I would advise you not to do not go crazy trying to do your job 120%. Just do the 100%. Just do the 90%. What's better than a great teacher is a healthy teacher. So keep yourself healthy. That's your number one priority. Isam, yes, what's up?
I just wanted to give an example and see if that would work, because from my own experience, and I always rave about my high school teacher, what she used to do is that she would give the bare minimum as a homework, and then she would just leave it as an open way, tell us that, for example, work exercise A and B, and if you find those easy, do the rest of the page or the next 2 pages and then come back after class and check with me if those were correct. But I guess that goes again back to the 100% into 100%. So you already answered my question, I think.
Perfect, beautiful. Then if I ask you the question, I'll bring back the question to you. How much do you give in class? Is it 100 or is it
no?
100%?
It depends. Honestly, it depends. At the space, I would say 60% if I had a good lunch.
Okay.
Yeah, at the orphanage, I was given 200%. I kind of let my emotions lead, which is a bad thing. Because I felt when I used to tutor there, kids that didn't have anything, that came from nothing, and they were like given their all to achieve things. On the other hand, when I was teaching in a private school, you just feel that they're not there to learn. They think they already know everything. So I just did the bare minimum not to get that paycheck at the end, which is a bad thing, which I'm trying to work on.
Perfect. Then again, just, experience will help you in developing yourself as a teacher and to know where is the fine line between being a great teacher and going absolutely crazy. Find that fine line and stay there. Do not go overboard, but at the same time, do not do the bare minimum, because the bare minimum doesn't change anything. And going overboard, again, makes you crazy. So try to find try to find something that would work for you. Again, this isn't something that you would find in 5 years, maybe in 1 year or 2 years, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 6 years, you will be able to find that fine line that will help you give your 100%. But at the same time, you're not going to go overboard and you're not going to be going too low. And then you will be really just wasting your time and your students' time because you're not really doing anything. So please do not become that type of teacher. Do your best to find your own routine and your own healthy routine, actually, that will help you do your job in a very, let's say, in a good peace of mind throughout your career. Yes, Walid, what's up?
Yeah. Actually, I had the question you already answered. Thank you, Aicha, about students helping each other. Maybe I can add another question, which is like, I already kind of, but maybe from an experienced teacher, it's much more. But what are the best practices that we can use in making the students learn from each other? Yeah, that's my.
How can we make students learn best from each other?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. Again, as I said before, it depends on the environment and on the type of the students that you have. There are students who are motivated and there are students who do not care at all. And then in your career, you're going to find that one student whom you cannot change. And as a teacher, you need to accept the fact that you cannot change everyone. End of story. You cannot change everyone. So take a minute, look at that student. I cannot change you. I'll do my best. However, I'll do my best because that's my job. However, I'm not going to go overboard again. I'm not going to try to change you. Then again, making students learn together is a great method. It will make things work like magic. Does this magic work for everyone? Not necessarily. Again, you need to know whom you are talking about. What kind of students am I engaging with? Are they students who learn through traditional methods? Because there are students who just like the teacher to give them everything. They go home and memorize. That's how they like to learn. There are students who like to learn through critical thinking. Give them a problem, let them solve it. There are students who like to learn through looking at audio, visual stuff and just listen and, watch things. Students are really different, just as much there are people in this world who are different. Are you going to be able to manage that difference? You are not going to. You're not going to do it 100%. It's impossible. Nothing is complete. But try to find the fine line that will help you do your job and help your students learn whatever objectives you have in your book. So it's great that you would want to develop your own program during work. I do that. I like to do that. But I do it with students who are motivated. With the students who are motivated, I can make my own objectives. I can go overboard and work on other things because they want to learn. But with the students who do not want to learn, I need to make everything fit into their objective. Because a student who's coming into your classroom, regardless of how they're thinking, they have an objective. Regardless of how they are in class, they have an objective of why they are there. It could be a very simple objective. They just want to pass the exam, have a good mark, and really just take their baccalaureate. So that's also an objective. Use that. Okay? So do not belittle the objectives of your students. If they just want to succeed for the heck of it, why not? Any objective that will help you communicate and connect with your students is useful. Use it. All right. I think there are some comments somewhere. Healthy teacher, exactly. All right. Any questions or remarks about this before we go ahead? Right. So far we just seen the difference between formative and summative assessment, the commonalities again, and you guys have come up with your own definitions for these terms. Right now we'll move to the, let me check. Yeah, we'll move to the next section, characterizing features of AFL. All right, let me ask you a very simple, stupid question. Do you remember anything from the first class? Anything about the characterizing features of AFL? It's okay to say no, really, I'm expecting that. It's all right. No worries. Again,
Aisha, is that about like sharing learning intentions, question and feedback? Is it that, or like that's something else?
Actually, yeah, that's a part of it. Why not? Yes, actually.
Okay.
Very nice. Very cool.
And then like peer assessment and self.
Yeah, exactly. Very nice. Oh, very good memory. Perfect. Even I didn't remember that. Cool. Sorry, why does it do that? It's a bunch of things that really you do not need to remember 100%. You just need to understand them. They just need to be at the back of your mind. This is what AFL is mainly about. These are the characteristics. These are the features. Let's try to keep them in mind. The first feature, learners are aware of the learning goals. So I just mentioned this a couple of seconds ago. No matter what kind of goal your student has, make them aware of it and make yourself as a teacher aware of their objective. At the same time, very clearly state your own objective to the student. Tell them, this is what I want you to learn. This is what I need you to learn. This is where we should be by the end of class, or by the end of the term, or by the end of the unit, or whatever. So always share the objectives. They will help you cut down a big road. Because working in a class with students who have no idea what they're there is completely different from working with a group of students who actually know what their objective is, what they're coming to class for. Right? Then again, the second feature, learners are aware of the standards that they are aiming for. And this is what I mentioned maybe a time ago about a grid. When you're making an exam, for example, let's say an oral exam, you do not make an oral exam just in the sky, like that. You make a bunch of questions and you ask people a bunch of questions. That's not how an oral exam should be. There should be a grid. These are the characteristics that I need to find in the person speaking. These are the skills that I need them to use. These are the language abilities that they should have. This and this and this and this, right? So the students should know that by the end of this course, these are the standards that I need to have in order to succeed this class, or in order to succeed in having or in achieving my goal. Cool. Then the third characteristic or feature, learners are aware of what they need to achieve in order to progress. So again, students' awareness. They need to have an idea of why the hell they're in a class. If they have no idea, there is no proper learning taking place. You're just having a bunch of kids who are taking a course, swallowing a bunch of papers, and then going home. You don't want to do that. Make your students aware of why they are in your class. And I think as students at some point, we had a problem with that. Our teachers did not share the objectives with us. And we struggled billions of times with math because we didn't know what's the objective of studying, I don't know, Pythagoras or whatever, because we didn't know the objective. Make them aware of why they are in class. A fourth feature, learners are aware of the evaluation criteria, the grid, for example, and what makes a final outcome successful. So 4 and what was that? 4 and 2 are very linked, right? The evaluation criteria, the final outcome, again, these are all parts of the standards that your students need to be aware of. This is how you're going to be evaluated. And then finally, learners are responsible for their own learning. You are not responsible. You are facilitating the learning process. You're showing them the path that they should follow. This is where you should go. This is what you should do. But everything that happens in between, it's up to you as a student. It's up to your motivation, your objective, and how you would like to take this learning. Do you want to go to the higher order thinking, or do you want to stay in the lower order thinking? Again, this is Bloom's taxonomy. In Bloom's taxonomy, where do you want your students to be? Do you want them to be in the bottom with no idea where they're there, or do you want them to be at the top in the higher order thinking? Yes, Walid.
So just maybe I will try to summarize what Aisha you've said to us. Is it fine? Like,
why do you need to summarize?
Just to see if I'm getting you correctly.
Perfect. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, because maybe I may understand is kind of not
no
correct,
worries. Yeah.
but
Go ahead.
maybe
Sure.
the 3 points that you introduced to us are answering the why should study, like objectives, the purpose, and for me it's the why. And for the fourth, and it answers what makes a final outcome successful. And for the last point, I believe it's the how. Am I correct?
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Because
Well, I'm not interrupting, so yeah, just go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's it. I will rephrase myself. For the 3 points, for me, I believe it's the why. The student should know why they are studying, the purpose behind their studies. And for the fourth one, it's what they should know and what makes them succeed. And for the last point, it's how they're gonna achieve the what.
Cool, very nice, exactly. So again, this is just like writing a sentence. When you're writing a sentence, you are thinking about 4 questions. You're thinking about the why, the what, the where, and the how. Again, in sentence structure, for example, we would write a subject, a verb, and then an object. And there is a logical order going on there. There is a why first. Sorry, there is a who, actually. There's a who, sorry. The who is the subject. And then there is a why, or there is a what, depending on how you would like your message to go through. Do you want to share a what, a something, an objective, or do you want to share a why, a reason? Then you would go to the what, the how, and the where. Then asking these, what can we call them? The WH questions. They don't all have WH in them, but asking all of these questions are very, very important. Something that has been shared with you guys before is making SMART objectives. SAMRT, SMART objectives. When you're making SMART objectives, you're asking yourself all of these WH questions. The why, the what, the how, the where. You need to know everything within the environment. You need to know everyone within that place. And you need to know how you're going to deal with them in the best way possible. Very cool. Perfect. Now we're moving to, from features or characteristics to the stages and key strategies in AFL. So whenever we try to do something, there's always a first step. So let me just throw this question at you guys. Let me see what you guys think. What do you think is the first stage or the first step in AFL? What could that step be? Again, there is no correct answer. There is no wrong answer. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I would suggest having a proper action plan, I guess.
Perfect. Having an action plan. Very good. Knowing where you're going, what you're doing, etc., etc. Very nice. Yes, Aysam.
I think it would be the learning purpose, because if we're going to teach something and we don't know why we're teaching that or to whom we're teaching that, we wouldn't be able to tell our students or pupils what we're going to teach them. We need to understand what we're teaching before we try to teach it.
Won't that be included within the action plan? Isn't there a section that concerns what you just said, Aysam? I'm not sure. I'm just asking.
Remind me again what an action plan is. Too much Herrera.
It's like what you're planning to do, like for that session, I guess. Am I right, Aisha, or I'm just like saying gibberish?
No, actually, you're completely accurate. Yes.
Okay, so I guess within that action plan, you can state the purpose of the course.
Oh yeah, but I think mine goes a little bit back than that, because you're talking about session to session. What I was thinking about is as we said in the AFL, does the equipment that we're going to use, the book or the question we're going to use, are they relatable? Are they still up to date? Because just from my own experience with the books that I was taught in, a lot of information is useless. It's outdated. So I think the first step is to make sure that the tools we're using are relatable and they can be, the students can feel connected to it, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Beautiful. Indeed. Yeah. Thank you, Isa. Thank you, Rawa. There was Hassan. Yes, Hassan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so action plan, as Rawa said already, and I want to add the questions, like the why, the what, the how, and the when. The WH questions that need to be answered in order to assess anything.
All right, so the first stage for you in AFL is questioning.
Yeah, questioning everything.
Everything. The theory of everything. All right.
Yeah.
Question the existence and the process and that. And do you have the brains for that? Sounds like a lot of work.
I think so. Just not everything, just like the key points, like why, what are you assessing? Why are you assessing it? And how are you assessing it?
Beautiful. Great stuff. Anyone else?
Yes, I would.
Sorry.
Yeah, I guess I would agree with what my colleague Rawat said. I would start with a personal action plan, but before that, I just need to know my students, like why. You know, I don't know how to say this, but I should just know my students before doing a personal action plan. Like, maybe I should include the purpose there, as Isa mentioned. So, but before putting the action plan, I need to know them more.
Exactly. Very cool.
Yeah.
Then again, I forgot to mention something when Isam was talking about an exam, doing an exam before taking or joining a school or whatever. That kind of exam is called a pretest. So when you want to know your students, as you've mentioned right now, Osama, you could do a pretest. So the first class for me, usually, I always prepare a pretest for my students. I want to know their level, and I want to know what they brought up from the baccalaureate or what they brought up from the first year in their studies. Where's their English at? What they know, what they don't know. This again is very helpful in keeping the balance in class. This is helpful, you know, in the first class, I'm going to know who are the high achievers and who are the ones with difficulties and who are the ones in the middle. I need this data to function, because if I don't know, then it's just going to be a hit and miss throughout the term or the year or whatever. So doing a pretest is actually very important. But yeah, that's a really good point. Really great points mentioned again. But actually, the first stage in your AFL, all of what you said is also included in these concepts that we're going to talk about right now, is setting the learning intentions and the success criteria. These are two things that are really enormously important in your class. And if you remember, a couple of days ago, I sent you a small assignment on learning intentions and success criteria. Then again, Usama, if you don't mind, could you please put live the breakout rooms again?
Yep, sure.
For 8 minutes, 7 minutes. It would be great.
Okay, 8 minutes.
All right. Then again, I would need you to go to your teams. Feel free to bring up the PDF that I sent you with the assignment so that you have a clear idea of what learning intentions are and success criteria are. And again, I need you to make another small definition of what is learning intention and what is success criteria. Okay, is that doable? Okay. Clear? Okay, welcome back. Hope you had a very good discussion. Again, I was going around spying on you guys as usual. Again, as I told you, just take it literal. We're not looking for, as I said before, not looking for professional definitions. We're just trying to figure things out according to what we know already, and then compare it to what the professionals said. But again, I would also appreciate if you guys tried to really avoid Google altogether. That would be really great. You don't need to check it. Just make sure you say things according to what you feel is right in regards to whatever concept we're talking about. Again, if there's any that should be Googled out, trust me, I'll let you know. Perfect. So let's break them down into two sections. What are learning intentions, and then what are success criteria? So let's keep it simple, stupid. who's going to share with me first their outcomes from the group discussion or the team discussion? And please, when you answer, just talk about the learning intentions only, just what you guys discussed about the learning intentions. We will see the success criteria in a minute. So let's start with group or team. Okay, let's keep it organized. We start with team 1. The first team was Sam.
Okay, thank you. So we discussed learning intentions. We agreed that it is the objectives that teacher decide for his or her students. I mean, what they are going to learn. And yes, learning intentions is like a brief statements that teachers make to explicitly, not implicitly, describe what students should know and understand at the end of the session or learning process. It is simply what the students are expected to learn. Yes.
Perfect, beautiful. So this is about what students are expected to learn. Very nice. Then again, summing up what Mohsin said in a second thing, learning intentions are about the objectives that the teacher decides for their students. Then again, brief statements that explicitly state what the students should know by the end of the course or by the end of the unit or whatever. And then again, it answers the questions, what are the expectations? Is that all right? Cool, beautiful. Thank you, Mohsin.
Yes.
Wonderful. We move to team 2.
Okay. Yes. Are you going to speak, Yusuf? Excuse us for that. We didn't decide on this spokesperson. Okay, so we didn't came out with something different than what group 1 just said. So learning intentions are the objectives and the aims of the lesson in general, while success criteria are the description of those objectives in a detailed way. This is what we came out with, and actually most of us are not sure about the definition of success criteria. So yeah.
No problem, no worries. So again, you share the same viewpoint as team 1. So the objectives in general, learning intentions are about the objectives that you're setting for the class. Very nice. Team 3, yeah, who's the spokesperson?
I think that's me.
Yep, Khalid, go.
Yeah, so as my previous colleague says, learning intention is basically what learners should know, understand, and grasp during a teaching session. Because learners learn more effectively when they know where they are heading during the session, like the purpose of the session. It's very important for the teacher to describe what students should grasp from the session, because students, that will give them like an idea of what the things that they should focus on and what the things that they should use their mind on, so to speak. So it's very important to state the learning intentions. There's no teaching session without that. It's gonna be messy. That's what I've experienced.
Perfect, beautiful. Again, a lesson that is not well planned, and Khalid, I told you a billion times, lesson plans. Take that. Without lesson plans, without a good organization, it's going to be really not just messy, but it's going to be a fiasco. Again, as I said, students are different, and then the environment also plays a role, and there are many variables. So the least you could do in order to control all of these is to be in control of your own self. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to teach. This is how I'm going to do it. So if I at least know myself enough, if I at least know how I'm going to teach and what I'm going to do, the rest is manageable. Let's try to use common sense to control the class. Again, that would come with the time and practice. Beautiful. Thank you, Khalid. Wonderful. And then we move to team 4. That's with Usama. Yep. Who's the spokesperson?
Yeah, the spokesperson is Hassan this time.
Yes, of course, with pleasure.
Yes, go ahead, Hassan.
So the thing that I see that we don't really talk much about, and I don't know if it works well with public schools or something like that, or with like the government schools, is the levels. In every language, in other subjects, we don't have levels like A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. We have just math, physics, and that's like there are no levels. But for languages, we have levels. That's how we evaluate the language with levels. So I think if we have these learning intentions that we need to take a student from a level to another one by the end of the year, like from A1 to A2 or from A2 to B1, that's our main, I think, should be our main intention, learning intention. And okay, that's for the intentions, but later we're going to talk about the criteria.
Perfect. Thank you, Hassan. Wonderful. Then again, I appreciate the fact that you've discussed the objectives with an example.
Yeah.
Again, in English, we have levels. So it's not like math and physics. You're either really smart or really stupid. There is no middle way. I wish there was. In languages, there are levels. So it's a lot easier to manage where you want students to be.
Exactly. It's not like other subjects. It's much easier, but we don't have it we don't see it implemented in our public schools. For private and for like language centers, it is applied. Like for language centers, we have this. Okay, if you don't pass B1 or B2, you're not gonna have the certificate. So people are studying for certificates. But if for government schools or something like that, they just study lessons and stuff. They don't even know their level in English. So you just end up knowing some scattered stuff in grammar, in writing, and stuff like that. But they just don't have the language. They just have bits of it.
Exactly. That's a really good point. Again, learning a language should be based on the level. That's very true. But again, taking all the socioeconomical and structural and demographic problems that we have, it's doable, but it's really hard to do it in public schools. That would take a lot of courage from the stakeholders and would take a lot of patience from them. And also from our part as teachers, from the entire community, in order to pass that kind of culture into the public school. Is it doable? Yes. Is it hard? Yes. But who's going to do it? I don't know.
Yeah.
The least we could do is, as I said before, work with what you have, be flexible with what you have, and try to achieve as much as possible with your students. Again, do not do that on the expense of your sanity. Be as patient as possible and stay a healthy teacher. Don't make yourself sick.
Yeah.
Yes. Perfect. Beautiful. Then again, I really appreciate what you guys have mentioned so far about learning intentions. Again, most of you share this point that it's about setting proper objectives and making students aware of them. All right. Then again, what we had before concerning learning intentions, a very brief definition. Learning intentions are about what you are planning that the students will learn in the lesson or the series of lessons. Very simple. So when you are writing in lesson plan, for example, at the top, you are writing objectives. This is what I want the students to learn. So learning intentions is just a fancy name for that. This is what I need my students to learn, basically. So it's very literal in a way. And this is what I like about AFL. It's just, everything is really simple. The terms might look fancy, but once you break them down and you take them literally, they actually represent themselves. We move to the success criteria. So we start again at the same round. I need you guys to share what you guys think about the definition of a success criteria. We're going to move to team 1, and there are cats fighting outside. Team 1, yes.
Okay, is it me or someone wants to speak?
It is you, Wasim. Go for it.
Okay, so we discussed that success criteria is the to-do list of learning, the most important things that the students have to demonstrate and show, and that they have to achieve in order to achieve the learning intentions. So it is what do you need to success to achieve your to achieve your learning intentions.
Beautiful. So it's about whether the teacher has what it takes to.
It is the way that you have to follow in order to success. Yes.
The way. Let's say the way to success. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marcin. Beautiful stuff. Team 2. Yeah.
Okay, so success criteria are something that is very much linked to learning intentions. And it is like something like a description of what the objectives or what success should be like or should look like.
Beautiful. I like that. So description of what
the objectives should look like or what success should look like.
Beautiful. I'm sorry, I'm taking notes at the same time, so that's why I'm going down. Beautiful. So you're saying that, again, I'm just going to restate what Mariam said. Success criteria are linked to the learning intentions. That's a very good point. And then they are used to describe or to state what success should look like. So they describe to students, they help students visualize what a successful outcome is like. Right, I like that. Beautiful. We move to the third team with Rawa again. So who's the spokesperson?
It will be me, I guess. Because, much like my previous colleague says, success criteria is very linked to learning intentions, and it's basically what success is like. Students should know what success is like because to help them more to plan and predict and set goals and pretty much acquire a stronger sense of stronger sense of, let's say, keeping track of their progress, because they need to keep track of their progress regularly to be able to set this kind of criteria, and they split their goal into steps, so to speak.
Excellent, great stuff. Again, so what success is like, this is the major element that I'm getting from Khalid, is that you should help your students visualize what success looks like, help them know how they would achieve the objectives within the course you're teaching or the lesson or whatever. Very nice, perfect. We move to group or team 4 with Usama.
Hello again. Taking the same example that I gave in the learning intentions about the levels, I think one of maybe the, not easy, but it's, as you said, it's hard, but it is possible. Like we can evaluate the level of the student through just a questionnaire or like a survey or an online exam that could be taken on phones. So students are kind of allowed to use phones in the classroom, and they can take that exam like in the classroom, and we can just evaluate their level. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's clear.
Yeah, you're talking about assessment, right?
Yeah, and that's how we see that this is just a measure of success of the learning process.
All right. So you're looking at success criteria from the perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, from the perspective that, hear me? All right. From the perspective that students, the first thing that you should do is not share what the success should look like with the students, but actually evaluate them.
Yeah.
All right. So your students do not need to know what success should look like.
No, they need to. It is levels. It's like if you are A1, your success is gonna be the results. You're like, it's like you move into the next level. You know, next level is the measure of success.
All right. All right. So the measure of success is the fact that you would actually move to the next level from A1 to A2, from A2 to A3, from A whatever to 1, etc. Very cool. Yeah, got you. Perfect. Wonderful stuff.
Cool.
Then again, thank you, Hassan. Then again, success criteria, and this is something that we had with Simon, and I'm sorry for those raising their hands. I'm going to give you the word in a minute. Success criteria are a selection of the most important things that the students need to demonstrate to show they have achieved the learning intention. So as Miriam said, the success criteria are linked to the learning intentions. So you're going to tell the students, this is what you need to learn. This is our objectives. This is our intention, right? But this is how the success, or this is how the intention should look like. This is how we should know that it's actually successful. Right? Then again, the success criteria are not something that you would develop only by yourself. You could include your students in that process. I find it a little bit difficult with lower level students, but when we talk about PhD or about master's students, it's very easy to discuss success criteria, and it's very easy to work together and make a way around them, and they would share, this is my objective, this is what I want to do, this is what success looks like, and then you could compile everything into a success criteria that is made in collaboration by the teacher and the student, right? However, it's also doable with lower level students. However, you're gonna have to code switch most of the time, because when you speak to someone who can't speak English, they're gonna be speaking, for example, in French. Once they do that, you're gonna say, oh, our first objective, how we could speak simple English. How can we switch from French or Arabic into speaking very simple English? That would be the major intention. Then again, what is the success criteria? How should it look? You would say maybe, I don't know, maybe in 2 months or so, or maybe during the first term, you got move to English. You're not going to be speaking French or Arabic in class anymore. You might struggle. It might look hard, but a major component in knowing if this is successful or not is the fact that the student would speak in English, regardless of how the language is, regardless of their pronunciation, regardless of the vocabulary, regardless of a lot of things. They might even use French words and think that they're English, which is completely fine. As long as you've achieved the objective or the intention that the students would switch to English, no matter how simple it is, the most important thing that they would do that. Then again, the success criteria answers one major question. What am I looking for? By the end, what am I looking for? How should the success look like at the end of the journey? Right. So putting everything together again, learning intentions are about setting the objectives. Again, we say in Arabic, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. You cannot work on whatever you're working on in life without having intentions and without having objectives. So that's the first step. Once that is good, once that is set, you would say, this is my intention, this is my objective, this is how it's going to look in 1 week, this is how it's going to look in 1 month. And these are the criteria that I need to see visible through the process. Right? So they're very, very linked to each other. Beautiful stuff. All right, before we move to the next section, I would give the floor to those who raised their hands. Can you guys please make it as brief as possible? Sosan, then Walid, yeah.
Yes, I just want to share with you how I understand the success criteria. So success criteria, I think that it is what the students are able to learn to meet the learning intentions. And it means also judging the students' success and accomplishments.
Perfect, to the point. Well done, Sosa, exactly. Beautiful. Yes, Walid.
Yeah, just I want to add to Hassan's idea. Actually, no, he brought up a really good example, the leveling thing. Like it gives us the opportunity to give the learning intentions and at the same time measuring our success. Like we will start, and also it motivates the students to learn learn their lessons. I guess I will keep it this short. If someone didn't understand, I will elaborate more if you want. Yeah, that's it.
Cool, thank you, very cool. Then again, it's about giving students sort of a motivation. Again, for example, in the ELT program, some of you are motivated by creating a professional teacher portfolio. Some of you are motivated by the certificate you will get in the end. Some of you are motivated by the fact that they're actually learning something for the first time and they're learning things firsthand. Then again, these objectives or these cheat sheets that you could use with your students are really different. And then there is no harm in having those objectives in any form or any way. People are different, they have different objectives, and we need to accept that. If someone is in it just for the certificate, let it be. That's their choice. But again, those who learn best are the ones who learn for the sake of learning, for the sake of actually developing themselves. So keep that in mind. Great. We move to the next section. We try to keep it as brief as possible. Afl Key Classroom Strategies. Then again, when implementing Afl in class, there are some key strategies that you need to put into consideration. Again, I'm going to send you an interesting YouTube video. I don't think we have time to see it now, but I'll send it to you, and it's kind of summative to everything that would and should and has to be discussed concerning success criteria and learning intentions. All right. Then this diagram, not diagram, this table right here could show you what these key strategies could be like. So we have the teacher, we have the student or the peer, and then we have the learner, right? The teacher, clarifying learning intentions and sharing the criteria for success. So everything that you guys have been saying since the beginning. You need to help the student know where they are going. So you must share with them the learning intentions and the success criteria. On the part of the learner, they need to show an understanding. You shouldn't just mention, oh, this is our objective, end of story. But no, you need to know if the students actually understand that objective, that intention, if they actually understand how you are going to evaluate them by the end. What is the success criteria? What should the success look like at the end of it all, right? Then again, at the same time, you would look at where the students or where the learners are right now. And this is something that Hassan mentioned concerning the level. Where is your student's level? Is it in A1, in A2, in B1, in minus, in whatever? How is it, right? Once you know the level, you're gonna know what kind of activities you're gonna use, how are you gonna deal with them, the tasks that you would give them. At the same time, the students are going to be aware of their level and they will be aware of how and what they need to learn. So the student shouldn't be in class just thinking, oh, wow, I speak great English. No, they need to know their actual level and what that level means. If I tell them it's A1, I need to tell them this is what it is, and this is why, and this is how. Most likely you would do a pretest. And then the next time you would go through that pretest with them and make it as concrete and simple as possible, right? And then the final stage, or let's say strategy, is how are you going to get there? How are you going to help your students in achieving the learning intentions and in achieving the success criteria by the end? Then again, as far, or let's say as long as you go during the class, you need to provide continuous feedback for your students. You need to help them move, as it's stated here, help them move forward. There should be progress. So your objective throughout the learning and teaching process is to help your students progress as much as possible. Again, these are aspects that are key to implementing AFL. So you need to know where the learners should go, where they are, and you also need to tell them how are you going to help them to get there, or how are they going to help themselves get to that point. All right. Then again, these are the key strategies that were shared by Simon in the first session concerning key strategies. He mentioned 5 key strategies. The first one, clarifying and sharing learning intentions and success criteria. Success criteria, so there's a small mistake here. So here you share the learning intentions with the students. So that's the first key strategy. Students need to be aware of what's going on. The second key strategy is questioning, right? You would, as he mentioned, engineer effective classroom discussion, questions and learning tasks that elicit evidence of learning. So you need to question the learning process, the teaching process, and you need to see progress. If there is no certain progress taking place in class, there is no learning. So you need to question yourself and start all over again. Then again, providing feedback that moves learners forward, written and oral feedback. Okay, it could be, for example, when we say oral feedback, it could be a discussion with the students, right? I'm going to raise a topic. I'm going to ask you to discuss whatever. This is what I think. This is what I think. And this is something that we did yesterday with AFL. Again, we had a class on AFL. You already know what is AFL, but I needed to know where you guys are so we could move forward. Because if you had no idea what AFL is, there is no point in discussing it to begin with. At the same time, there could be written feedback. And this is something that you guys do, as Isam mentioned, you do it with the cloud or with the drive folders, where you share your feedback by the end of the class in form of what did you learn today? You have 2 key questions to answer. What did you learn today? And how is this going to make me better? Right? The 4th key strategy is self-assessment. All right, you're assessing yourself. At the same time, you're activating students, you're having them know that they should assess themselves and not wait for you to assess them all the time. You're not in charge of that 100%. They're also in charge of their learning, so they should be able to assess themselves by themselves as well. And finally, a final key strategy is peer assessment. Students could assess you, and you could assess your students, and maybe another teacher could help you assess yourself. And this is where something that we are doing in the program is peer observation. You guys are giving each other observations about your classes. Again, this is a very important form of collaboration so that you would know how your classes are going, and at the same time know what kind of AFL you're implementing, or if you're actually implementing any AFL in class. And I doubt that any of you does not really use it. And something that I got from your learning log, which most of you said, is that we didn't know that we were actually implementing AFL without knowing it. So you're unknowingly implementing concepts and strategies of AFL in your classroom without knowing that. So again, this is an interesting way, or this is interesting for us so that we would know that this is what we're doing in class and this is the name of what we're doing. Okay, we should put, as we say in Arabic, نقط على الحروف. So we have الحروف, but we need نقط. So AFL and everything that we're seeing with, again, what is AFL with the formative and summative assessment, the features, the characteristics, these are just نقط على الحروف that you need so that you would know how you're implementing AFL in your class. Perfect. Oh, that's the end of that. And then we're going to move to the second phase at some point. I'm going to send you these references I consulted during my preparation for this course. Then again, I would stop it right here. This was really intense. Was it too much information?
Actually, no, because the way you taught us listening is smoother than the last session about the AFL, and I felt like we are enjoying, at least for me, I'm enjoying this session. Thank you, Aisha.
Perfect, beautiful. Thank you, Walid. Great stuff. Then again, let me share my screen once more. Where is that document? Again, I ask you to do this as a homework for a second. Again, the objective is to have you know what learning intentions are through actually doing it. Then again, how well you have developed your classroom practice in using learning intentions. So maybe you are using them intentionally or maybe not. While you are answering these questions, not questions, these statements, while you are saying, for example, I set learning intentions with my students. Did you do that in the first class? Did you discuss with your students, oh, this is what we're going to learn? So be ready. Did you do that in the beginning? Then again, I make sure that the learning intentions are in student-friendly language. So the language is not too much. It's not too challenging. It's just the right amount of difficult in class. I use words associated with the learning. Again, etc., etc. This is the most important for me. I use SMART learning intentions: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time limited. You should not make objectives that are in the air. They have to be as concise as possible and as limited as possible, because a small objective that is attainable is better than a big objective that you will not achieve it, even if you fly to the moon. So keep it simple, keep it realistic. I always tell my students, when you're learning, keep it simple, stupid. Nobody needs difficult these days. Nobody needs information. Everything is available online. Even if I want to do a math equation, I could do it on an application. It's already there. What I need to do is to understand the logic of things. I keep them simple, stupid. I keep them to the minimum. I understand them. I understand their logic.